If you say the opposite, I got a body and I got a soul, and I'm stuck somewhere in between the two of them, so then I don't know who to talk to, or I'm hearing many voices, then it's a conflict. If the body says, I want to sleep, and the soul says, you get up and pray, so you don't know what to do. You don't know what to do. You have two bosses. And some days you listen to one boss, some days you listen to the other boss, and the truth is, it's like being married to two wives. You know, the Talmud tells us the story of, if a man gets married, he shouldn't be married to a young wife and an old wife at the same time, when the time you're able to. Because what happens, the young wife is going to pull out all the guys' gray hairs, and the old wife is going to pull out all the guys' black hairs. What's going to happen? He's going to have no hair. Can't make them both happy. Right? So if you're living in the physical realm and you're living in the spiritual realm and they both are bosses, then you never can be happy. Because whenever you're engaged in one, number one, you can't be totally engaged in one because you're holding something back for the other one. And also, you're not giving your full effort into one area. And number two, you're feeling bad how you're neglecting the other area. And you just keep going back and forth, and it can be a maddening experience. And you never really know which one is the real experience and which one. You're always not happy in whichever one you're doing. You're going to shul, you're saying, I'm missing all the sales. You're going to the sales, I'm not being a good person, I'm not being shul. So you're always living with one issue or another, conflicting with each other. But if you understand that there's only one boss, and the other is only intended to serve, then this whole area of choice would be so much easier because there really is no conflict. And that's really what Hashem wanted, and Hashem wants us in our daily activities to reflect this unity of Hashem by understanding that, you know what, a body without a soul isn't anything. It's the soul that really is who. If you ask, who am I am a spiritual being. That is my primary being that has a body that it's stored in a body. And the body and the physical part is a storage facility. So you don't take a storage facility too seriously. You take care of it, you don't let it be neglected, but you don't let it decide things. Then you have a unity in your life. You have a unity in your life. Now, let's go back to the medrash with the body and the soul. When the body said, it wasn't my fault, and the soul says, it wasn't my fault. So, what is the medrash defining? The medrash is defining a person who considered himself with two separate entities inside of himself. When Hashem comes to you at the end of the day, he says, what's going on? He turns to the body, turns to the soul, because the person himself saw himself as two separate entities. And that's usually where the mistake lies, because of the conflict that's between those two. So here's a person who's living two lives as this spiritual schizophrenic. So Hashem, when it comes to the judgment day, Hashem says, oh, why are you doing this? He says, well, what do you want? What do you want? The body was in charge today. He says, what do you mean? I'm not the body, I'm the soul. Then he says, well, but the soul did the Avera too. No, so you're not sure what your real identity is, because you always were serving a different master. So what is it that Hashem really has to do? Does he really have to do to punish you? That's not the real goal. So Hashem says, that was the biggest mistake you made of all. You thought there were two different entities inside you. You're able to play one off against the other. So he says, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the two and put them together and judge you together. So what does that mean? So the answer is, Hashem is saying you were expected to work together. And your downfall came by segregating those two into different areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the two of you back together, and now you will be judged for what you were able to do together, not just for what you did wrong. That's what the Medrash is saying. I'll put you back together means I will judge you the way you could have operated in a partnership. And it's not a question now of who's right and who's wrong. They're both wrong because they're both meant to work together. That's the same idea with the story of the garden. Both men had a vital job to do. One was to watch and one was to run. What did they do? They took their jobs and worked them against each other, and therefore they caused the downfall of what was going on over there. And that's the biggest lesson a person is going to find out when they go to the next world. What's the biggest lesson that the person who has been a sinner in his life, what's going to be the biggest lesson? You kept saying that you had to do all these averos. He says, you don't even know who you were. You really were one being. You were one spiritual being. And had you done this, you'd have understood how to live your life. And all these issues wouldn't have been issues. And if I want to get you into Olam Haba, you got to understand who your true reality is. And this is where the real source of our problems exists. Because to the degree that you really think you're a body, then you think the body really has legitimate needs that have to be addressed, and quite often they come in conflict with what the neshama is supposed to be doing. Right? The body, it brings you down. The body wants to have the here and now, and the physical needs have to be addressed, and you think that that's the entire reality of life, and if I don't have this, then my life is miserable. And then so that comes to the expense of spiritual things, and then you get involved in that, and then but then you look back and say, oh, but I'm not anywhere spiritually, and then you feel bad that you're not anywhere spiritually, so you don't even enjoy the negative things you're doing. So it's a vicious circle that goes on, and the person just gets destroyed from that. So Hashem says the first thing you got to know is that you really were one being. If you would have understood that you were one being, and you're a neshama, that's who you are. Okay, the body is subservient to it, and really it plays a very small role in your life, and should never have played such a big role in your life. Doesn't mean to say you don't live your life. You live your life. We're not suggesting for a minute you have to live an austere life, a monastic life, without any addressing the body. But it gets addressed in context of what the soul decides it needs, and to enable the soul to get the job that it needs done. If you have only one mission in life, you can stay focused and you get the job done. And that's the message that the Medrash is saying. So now let's bring this back to the Korban now. Let's bring it back to the Korban. The Sefer Chinuch is saying, once the life force leaves the animal, the body is just for burning. There's nothing worth left keeping, says the Chinuch. So that's what a person really should always be thinking to himself. That's really what a person should be thinking about all the time. Now what's the purpose of thinking that? What's the purpose of thinking that? So, if the guy's a sinner, let's say the guy came and he brought a korban because he did an avera, then obviously he understands why he sinned. He ran after the body without considering the soul, so the lesson is great. You can't address one without the other. If you're just going to address what the body wants, that's going to get you in trouble. But the truth is, it's a deeper lesson, and really it's a lesson for everybody. Let's say a guy wants to just give a gift to Hashem. I didn't sin. But what do? You want to come closer to Hashem. Remember, the word korban comes from the word karov, which means close. The purpose of the korban, and really this is the purpose of what Yiddishkeit is all about. There's only one purpose to Yiddishkeit, which is what? As David HaMelech says, and it's on there on a Kodesh. Right? For li kirvas Elokim li tov. And for me, closest to Hashem is what's good. The only thing good in life is being close to Hashem. That's it. That is what life is all about. So the Korban is, how do we get close to Hashem? So if a person wants to get closer to Hashem, he has to realize that there aren't two entities. If you want to get close to Hashem, you've got to realize there isn't two entities over here. That godliness and spiritual values are the most essential existence for a person that he could have in his life. Other things in life can be pleasurable and good, but they're not intended but they're not intended for the worship of Hashem, so to speak, and they're not really supposed to be separate things. If the physical things in your life, you look at separate things that have nothing to do with Hashem, then you're creating a barrier between you and Hashem. In other words, do people feel that during the day you need a break from God? You know, I can go to shul for 3-4 hours, but I come home from shul, I need to take a break from God. I have too much God already. Too much God. I've been talking to them for 3-4 hours. I learned Gemara, God. It's enough. So just leave me alone. Let me just read a newspaper and let me see what's on sale in the stores, and let me give my body a little bit of fun. Right? I love you, God, and I love other things too. That's where the conflict comes. A body without a soul is worth nothing. If you're going to address the body without addressing the spiritual part, you're a behemoth. And what do we do with a behemoth? We burn it. A behemoth has no value. So the person has to make a decision in their life. Who are you? What are you? What makes you tick? So a person can say, I'm a behemoth. Okay, you're a behemoth. Then you're out of the game. There's no one to talk to. He says, no, I have a soul, but I also have a body. And I like them both. And they're both good friends of mine. And I want to be on good terms with both of them. So you can't. The two of them, if you look at it as two separate entities, they will be in conflict with each other. The body has certain needs, the soul has certain needs, and there's always going to be conflict. So then you can't win, and you're going to always give excuses. So one day you do that very, you say it's the body's fault, and then the soul says, well, it really wasn't my idea, etc., etc. If a person says, I love you, Hashem, but I also love my stomach, right? There are other pleasures to take care of. By definition, you are creating another area of pleasure and love in your life. So as long as you recognize there's another area that's totally separate from Hashem, so then your love and coming closer to Hashem has to be hampered and held back. Do you understand? Do you understand? It's not possible. Like if you're married to your spouse and says, I love you, dear, and I also love the secretary. I love you both. So it doesn't work. It's not going to work. Well, I love you most of the time. Really, I love you 6 days of the week, but one day I like to go out with the secretary. So what are you so upset about? What are you upset about? It's all or nothing, man. So it's the same thing with Hashem. You can't say, well, Hashem, I like you on Shabbos, and on the weekdays I like my boss, I like other things in life. That doesn't work. There's this conflict. So the intention of the animal offerings is to say that there aren't two pleasures to be running after, and you want to get the best of both. Because it's not possible. One world holdbacks the other. If you love both, sometimes you do this, sometimes you do that, and it doesn't enable you to get close to Hashem. You can't say to Hashem, I have time for you, and I have to have time for myself. It doesn't work. And this is what I think people are trying to try to have the best of both worlds. So I did the best of both worlds is the worst of both worlds. Because to the degree that one world is separate from the other world, that means you're not close to Hashem. And you're breaking that close. And you can't say, well, can't I be close to Hashem and also be close to the other world? Really you can't, because they're not working in tandem. They're not working together. Now, of course, I don't want you to get this idea. Again, everything in the world, all the pleasures can be funneled, and they can be directed, and they can be energized in ways in which a person can worship Hashem. And that's really the trick. If you understand that, then the person can come closer and closer to Hashem all the time. So it's not like people say, well, I mean, if I serve Hashem, I can't enjoy the physical things in life. That's not what the Torah is saying. The Torah is saying there are physical things in life. Use them, enjoy them, the way Hashem says is the best and most meaningful way for you to use and enjoy them. With the boundaries that you were given. And then you can use them. And they won't create any conflicts between you and Hashem. If you're going to say it's its separate world and has its separate systems, and therefore, no, this is a world without Hashem, then you create the conflict, and then it's not possible for you to function properly as the human being, the way Hashem wants you to be that way. So once you understand they work together, so therefore, when you are saying that I am a neshama, and the neshama is everything, and everything else in this world is only there to get me closer to Hashem, so that is the greatest way of unifying God in this world. So, for example, let's go back to eating. Okay, since that's something we all tend to like, right? So what does the Baal Tanya have to say about eating? So he's saying that eating really is one of the holiest activities a person could do. It's one of the holiest activities a person could do. And the Sfarim write that eating a proper meal is akin, it's an allegory to what life in the world to come will be like. The allegories of the world to come, the rabbis sitting down, they enjoy a great meal, although they're not eating anything, but there's analogies of this idea of a meal. So what is a Jew supposed to be thinking when he's sitting down to a meal? So there's two thoughts, a simple thought and a deeper thought. The simple thought is, you sit down, and again, as long as the food's kosher and it's reasonable, you can eat. Here's a good example. Torah doesn't say you can't eat. Torah doesn't say you have to starve to be a frum person. Go ahead and eat. Gesundheit. Go eat. But what you have to do is, you have to ask, why am I eating? Why am I eating? So the simple level is to say, I'm eating because if I eat healthy foods, my body will be healthy, I'll be able to serve Hashem. So very nice. So now that's not in conflict with Hashem. Hashem wants you to eat. He says, I want you to get up for davening, I want you to do chesed, I want you to do mitzvahs. The body needs energy. You eat food, you have the energy, you're doing it to have the energy. That's amazing, Baruch Hashem. Very nice. And you can have a nice meal. Now, but that's on a simple level. But let's take it on a deeper level. Okay. Person looks at a piece of meat or something he's going to eat. So he thinks a little back, and he says, where did this meat come from? I'm going to make a bracha shakol miyeh bidvaro. Okay, where did this meat come from? Okay, it came from Sobeys. Okay, it came from Sobeys. Right, how did it get to Sobeys? Well, a truck probably brought it. And where did the truck come from? The truck came from a farm. Okay, good. And the truck really the truck came from the schlachtos. The truck came from the slaughterhouse. And it brought all the cuts of meat or whatever, right? So now, where did the animal, how did it end up in the slaughterhouse? Well, it was a truck that brought it from the farm. Okay, good. So what was the cow doing on the farm? The cow was eating grass. The cow was eating grass. Where did grass come from? Grass came from, basically, wind, sun, and water. Okay, so now you add up all the pieces to the puzzle over here. So God brought the sun out, He had the rain fall, He brought wind, and there was this one little kernel of grain that the farmer put into the ground, and that little kernel of grain, that little seed, became a whole kernel of grain. And the animal is eating all this grain. So what do we have over here? We got the earth with the nutrients. That's an inanimate object. That represents the inanimate objects of the world. You got the grain, that's the plants. And you got the cow, that's a living animal. All working in tandem to become your dinner. And more than that, not only that, but also the Italian truck driver who brought the meat from one place to the other is also working for you, isn't he? And not only that, but the Italian truck driver, from the farm to Sobeys, a long trip, he stopped over at McDonald's, and he had some treif sausages. So all the sausages he ate gave him the strength to drive the truck, to take the meat, to go to Sobeys for you to have the meat. And therefore the entire pig farm that was utilized to make the sausages were all involved in you having that nice little piece of rib steak tonight at home. So now, the Baal Time says, so what are you supposed to do? So now look at all the different things in this world. Now look what's going on in the world at the same time. You got a treif pig farm over here. You got a kosher farm over here. You got every different aspect of creation being used. The wind, the rain, the earth, the sun, the seeds, the cow, the goy, the pig. How about the roads? Ontario roads. The guys putting asphalt on the ground. The whole 401 system, right? It's all there. You know, in CNN is making a poll. What were they said the three greatest inventions of the second half of the 20th century was? They said there are three. They want people to vote on what are the three. One is the interstate highway. Used to be the states weren't connected. They made interstate highways. The other one was the internet. What was the third? Can't remember. What would have been the third? I don't remember. A big thing. Can't remember. It just slipped my mind. So they wanted people to vote. What were the three? What was the biggest impact on you? But the truth of the matter is they're all involved. And I'm sure, nowadays even the computers have to be involved in bringing the meat to Sobeys. And the interstate highways. So now all those things are working, and they don't seem to have any direction in life. Right? The cow's eating because the cow's hungry. The grass grows because the rain grew on it. The Italian truck driver is driving the truck because he wants to make money. The guy at McDonald's running to McDonald's because everyone's doing their own thing and nothing's unified. So the Baal HaTanya says, now you take that piece of meat and now you have a little bit of thought for a few moments of how that meat came to your table. And what about the whole thing? How were you able to buy it? You bought it with money. Where did your money come from? Where did my money come from? I was working. Where did you work? Oh, I was busy selling shoes. Oh, so all the involvement you had of ordering and buying and making and that's a whole other industry. And that whole industry was just involved to have enough money to go and buy the food. And let's not forget about the cash registers and the guy who's cleaning and mopping up in Sobeys. There's a lot going on for your little piece of meat. It's not in a vacuum. But that's one question. One question. Who's responsible for all of that? Is there one unifying factor to all of that? Sure. And you say it every time you make the bracha. Shakol miyeh bidvaro. Everything exists by your word. Everything. Everything. And they all have one purpose. All of it is one purpose. To direct it back, to give thanks to you. Now, when you do that, you made a tikkun in the world. You brought the world back to Hashem. You did it exactly. That's why God created this world. For that moment that you make that bracha. That's the tikkun that you make. Right? Now that really is your korban. That is your korban. We don't have korbanos nowadays. But that's the whole idea what the korban is trying to bring out. That's why the Gemara says that the name of Hashem can be used in many different ways, but by korbanos it's only one name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. That personifies God's oneness. The whole idea of the animal offering is just to say that I am one because Hashem is one and everything is focused together, and the body and the soul, the two most disparate things in the world, are meant to function together, and therefore everything of Hashem falls into one aspect. So now you play that out when you go and you make the bracha Shakol miyeh bidvaro. The Gemara says that your table is like the Mizbeach. It's like a shulchan. It's like an altar. What does that mean? It's meant to express God's oneness. So now, and what do you do at the table? You're doing something very physical. It seems to be very far removed from spirituality. And the Torah is saying you can have a nice meal. It's no problem. A very nice meal. Just make sure you're unifying the world. Does the food taste any worse by doing that? It tastes just as good. You're doing something that is of greater benefit than just chowing down the food. Now if, on the other hand, you go to the food and you don't make a bracha, and instead of eating a reasonable amount of food, so you have a nice piece of steak, you have 5 steaks and a half a pot of potatoes and 6 eclairs. So then, what are you taking the whole world? You're taking the whole world for what purpose? To fill your spare tire. To make yourself physical, just for pleasure. So you're taking everything in the world and you're using it for no purpose at all. And then you have the person who's caught in the middle. Who says, well, I like you, Hashem, and I like my stomach. So then he's never sure what he's doing and he's always in conflict in what he's doing. And that's what Hashem doesn't want us to have to suffer. So therefore, and this concept that we just described, is this an easy concept? Can you sit down and explain it and in one lesson they got it? So Hashem said, Moshe, this is the hardest one you've ever taught to people. To tell people that you're in a physical world and to ignore that that is the primary thing in your life. That what's in front of you is just a mirage, it's just subservient to a spiritual realm. And here's the point. When Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, was at the Sea of Reeds and he split the Yam Suf, or he brought the plagues, he was teaching the Jews different aspects of Hashem. One aspect of Hashem's power, His mercy, different elements of Hashem in its own realm. But the idea of Korbanos was to teach that all the aspects, everything falls under one God. Everything. Like we spoke about last week. That even the bad things are all part of God's world. And that is the most difficult thing to teach anybody. Today you can read the paper and say, you look at the earthquakes, say, Mamish, God is powerful. Yeah? God is powerful. Tomorrow you read in the newspaper and you see, oh, God is so merciful. Look what Rahmanis he had on the people that he brought this. And later you see that God is this. And you get different feelings. God is this, God is that. But to believe that God is truly one and everything falls back into one, that's the hardest lesson. To take two opposites of the body and soul and say they are one, that's really taking everything in the world and saying it is all one thing. And this is the hardest lesson that had to be taught. And that really is what happens every time a Jew brought a Korban. That was the message, to know that a body without a soul is worthless. And for I have to stop focusing on my body as a central partner in this endeavor. It's subservient, and that's all a body is. And once I understand that, then a lot more things become clear. And that's what's worth to kill thousands and thousands of animals, to repeat that idea over and over to get it into our heads. That's what the Gemara explains, that from the Torah given at Sinai until the Mishkan was built, the Jews didn't get punished for any private averis they may have done. Public averis, yes, sin the golden calf. But private averis, no Jew, if any Jew did an avera from the Sinai until from the 6th of Sivan until the next year, the 1st of Nisan, no Jew was punished for an avera. Why? Because even though they accepted the Torah, but until the Korbanos came and they saw what the Korbanos did, and they understood the message of the Korbanos, so that concept of oneness was not yet impressed upon the Jews, and as long as that idea of oneness is not impressed upon the Jews, you're very vulnerable and can't be fully responsible for doing Averis. After they had the Al Moed and Korbanos were brought, then when a person does an Aver, it's because they didn't understand the lesson that Hashem taught you about the oneness. You know about the oneness, you wouldn't come to do the Aver. Every Aver we do, at the end of the day, it always comes back to the one point. What did you do? You believed that your body could do what it wanted and had nothing to do with your neshama that day. And to any degree that you're holding yourself back of getting close to Hashem, it's that by saying that the physical world is its own world that's disconnected from spirituality. And that was the most difficult lesson that the Jew had to learn. And now, so we don't have the Korbanos. So again, we have the meals are a good substitute. And also, what's the other substitute? What's the other substitute for Korbanos? Prayer. We're the same thing. So what's the idea of praying? They did when you talk to Hashem, you have to walk away from this feeling of, when you daven, they all speak about how you try to get out of the body experience, connect to a higher feeling towards Hashem, and then you come back down and then bring the body back to where the neshama was able to soar in the davening. And to get that back to where it should be, to get everything in line. This is really what Avodas Hashem is all about. Okay. So how do we have eating the meals is one. The brachos we make. The davening we make. These are all the things that are all there, reading about it in the Torah. And just by reading it and understanding that message, that makes things clear for us. So let's just say one last thing, just to give you of how it really was in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, and how the Chassam Sofer explains one pasuk very beautifully. The third pasuk, when it says a person brings a korban olah, it says if a person brings an olah, he brings it to the door of the Al Moed, right? So it says the person should bring it. It says he should bring it. Yakrivenu al Pesach, he should bring it. So Rashi says it teaches us that we even have to force the guy to bring it. So then you might think that he can be forced to bring it against his will. So the end of the pasuk says, Yakrivoso lirtzono livnei Hashem. He has to bring it voluntarily. So Rashi has to understand. You force him to bring it, he brings it voluntarily. What does it mean? So Rashi says, we force him until he says, I'm agreeing to do it. So what does that mean? So some understand it the way we understand the Rambam, for example. The Rambam says, we know in Jewish law, if you want to give a get, a bill of divorce, it has to be voluntary. A man must give it voluntarily. And if you force him, it's a problem. So the Rambam says, though, what if the guy doesn't want to give it? So what do? We beat him up. The Bezdin beats him up till he says, I want to do it. So now you want to do it. Very good. So well, what does that mean? That doesn't seem to make sense. So everyone explains that really the essence of the Jew, you go deep, deep down, every Jew really wants to do what Hashem wants to do. But you can have big Yetzer Hara before the person. That's what holds him back. So what the Bezdin do? By hitting the guy, they're beating out the Yetzer Hara. That's all. If once the Yetzer Hara is gone, then the real Jew comes out. The Mishigas goes away, the real Jew comes out. So he really does want to do the will of Hashem. But you got to beat out the Yetzer Hara. So we could say that's the same thing. The guy doesn't want to bring the korban, that's the Yetzer Hara, but the real Jew wants to bring it. So the Chassam Sofer explains a little bit differently, and he really goes through the idea in a very nice way. He says, imagine we're going back to the times of the temple, and you have a farmer living in a tiny rural community far away from the center of Torah in Yerushalayim. And let's say the guy doesn't have Vayikra. The guy doesn't have Vayikra. So what is he supposed to do? Well, I got to take a trip to Yerushalayim. I got to take a trip to Yerushalayim. I got to bring a korban to Yerushalayim. Now in those days, you couldn't fax the money, and someone there takes the money, and like you couldn't have people go say prayers at the kotel for you. Well, someone bring a korban for you. No, you have to go in person. Really, there was no other way around this. So the Yetzer Hara probably would start talking to the guy and say, listen, I understand you did not Vayikra, but listen, everybody makes an Vayikra now and then. Do you have time to go to Yerushalayim now? Do you understand? It's the beginning of the spring. It's the busiest time in the farm now. You just can't you live up in Tzfas. It's going to take you 3-4 days to get down to Yerushalayim. You're going to be there for a day or two. It's going to take you 3-4 days. Do you have a week and a half to take off from work just for one little korban over there? Who's going to take care of the farm when you're away? And let me ask you something else. You see Chaim Berel over there? Are you a bigger tzaddik than him? I don't see him going to Yerushalayim the last 6 months. You mean to say Chaim Berel never did have here? I've never see too many people from the whole community ever go to Yerushalayim. And you're a bigger tzaddik than them. Don't you see? A lot of people are taking a verse and they don't go. Oh, he already has a big battle against his Yetzer Hara. It's just telling him not to go. It's not good for you. And he could probably marshal all kinds of Mamorei Chazal. You have an obligation to take care of your family. The Ksuva says you have to make sure your wife has what to eat. And if you leave, no one's going to have anything to eat. It's going to be terrible. Finally says, I don't care, I'm going to go. Okay, so he has to take a cow. And he starts going to Yerushalayim. So on the way, he has to stop off along the way. He's got to sleep. So he stops somewhere in the Galil, in a hotel over there. And says, you're checking in the hotel. How many nights? One night. Where are you going? I'm going to Yerushalayim. What are you going to Yerushalayim for? Oh, I got some business to take care of. Oh, yeah, I hear it. That's what they all say. It's like the guy goes to this embarrassment. He says, hey, what are people going to think of me when they're going to find out that I did an Aveira and I'm coming to get kapara of that? I wonder what's going to happen when my kids get a little older. We have to make shidduchim for them. And they found out that one of the shidduch questions is, how many times does your father go to Yerushalayim to bring a korban? Right? You don't think they weren't thinking these questions? People think now these things, right? So the farmer fights the urge. Let's forget about it. Let's just forget it. Let's go back. It's exactly every step of the way. It's a battle. Mamish to the end. It's a battle. Okay, and you can imagine the guy's not that excited to bring this korban. Okay, now finally he makes Yerushalayim. Finally he comes to the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. And now the guy is enveloped in holiness. He sees the Kohanim doing the beautiful service of the temple. He hears the Levim singing songs to Hashem. He looks at the great Sanhedrin that's sitting there, the smartest rabbis, and they're deciding what are the Jewish laws. He's seeing the miracles that happen in the temple on a daily basis, the fire on the Mizbech that didn't go out. He's seeing the tent, it's raining and the fire's still going on, and no matter how many animals are slaughtered, there's no flies around. There's 10 miracles he's seeing over there. So he's into a beautiful, beautiful atmosphere. And then he realizes, and the Yetzer Hara didn't want me to see this. He kept telling me not to go, but I'm here. It's the best thing I did for myself this whole year. And he feels so grateful for the opportunity to rid himself from that Avera that he had. So that's what the Chassam Sofer says in the meaning of the Pasuk. In the beginning we say, Yakrivo, so we bring him against his will. In other words, whenever it's time to do something good, there's always the Yetzer saying, no, you got 1,000,001 excuses not to do it. And you really don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. But at the end of the day, it's got to be l'rtzono lifnei Hashem. It has to be willingly. In other words, when you don't have the tactics of the Yetzer Hara, it becomes something that you really want to do. And that really is that's the whole game of life in Yiddishkeit. That the Yetzer Hara is trying to tell you, why is telling you not to bring the Korban? Why not to make stuff? Because you're a body, and as a body, enjoy life. But if you really get into a good atmosphere, and you do the mitzvah, you do all these things, and you say, this was such a good thing. So many times, when you don't want to do something, you have to force yourself. I don't want to do it. It's Baal Korcha. I don't want to do it. Because the Yetzer tells me not to do it. But once I do it, and once I see it, and once I enjoy it, then it was, why didn't I go faster with this? That becomes, that's when you finally bring the body and soul together, that's the way you're able to achieve that. So this is what the book of Vayikra is all about. This is the Torah's Kohanim. This is what all service to Hashem, all is predicated on that. You want to be a Jew, you want to enjoy your Yiddishkeit? It's got to be with a partnership of the body and soul. The day you forget that lesson, then it's going to be miserable. Because whatever you're doing religiously, I'm trading off, I'm losing physical. Whatever I'm doing physical, I'm losing out in Yiddishkeit. But if you understand that every physical pleasure was meant to be channeled in a spiritual way, and there's one unified thread, and you bring it all together, then there can be no greater pleasure. Then you have the best of both worlds. And that is the heart of Avodah. Hashem should help us, especially coming before Pesach. Before Pesach, it's a hard avoda. It's certainly, you have to, yakrivo, so you have to be brought forcefully, right? You're going to Sovi's, you say, I don't want to go, it's the 7th trip to Sovi's this morning. Right? It's just, and the lineups and this and that, and to clean, and all these things. I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. The HR is giving you all kinds of things. You really don't have to check so much. It's okay if you don't have to put so much boiling hot water, and you didn't miss that spot. That's okay, and let it go, and this and that and everything else. But then at the end, when you have the Seder, and you see how beautiful everything is, then it really is something that you did want. And all that work was all to bring you to that point. So if you realize the goal, and it's not the problem with the Pesach cleaning, it's the body is fighting. It's fighting it. The body says, I don't like this. Right? Is that what the body's saying? I don't like this. And you say, yeah, but this is what you're meant to do. This is what you're meant to do. At the end of the day, this is what's going to bring the Kedusha into the house. This is what's going to bring all the miraculous feelings. The Seder night, we're told, Hashem gives you a gift beyond what you're capable of achieving yourself. So how does that happen? It's because you got to get rid of all the chametz. Got to get rid of it and unify yourself with Hashem. So all the hard work, so we don't schlep animals from Tzfas to Yerushalayim, so Hashem says there's other ways. You have big houses now that need a lot of cleaning. So if you clean all that, and you unify that to Rabbi Shalom, then you'll have a meaningful Seder, and that will be a beautiful tone for the rest of the year.